Hello everybody, and welcome to a different video. I hope you enjoy it. This is something that I have been trying to do for a long time now. Forgive me if some of the events and sources are a little bit out of date, but don't worry, they only go as far back as 2015, 2016 time to roughly, well, this year, but earlier on in the winter. If any other things have happened during that time, do tell me and send me the relevant articles or links, and I'll be sure to maybe make an addendum if I have the time. This video, and I have to make some disclaimers here, is not about Blizzard's games. I am not going to necessarily review them or cast judgment on them. Personally, if you want my opinion, they don't appeal to me. I've never played a Blizzard game. The point is not about the game's quality, but rather what Blizzard is doing in and around with the community and their attempts to police their multiplayer games. I have never played these games. I can't cast judgment on them. It would be stupid, it would be pointless, and I don't want people to think, oh, you don't like Blizzard, that's why you're doing this. No, I don't really have an opinion on their games because I've never played their games. I just don't like their actions. So without further ado, let's start this video. Now recently, the video game industry over the past decade almost has been infiltrated by social justice activists. These people have been campaigning, they have been agitating, and they have been trying to change the industry from the inside. They came from without and have found, unfortunately for those of us who consider this hobby a passion and enjoy being part of the many different communities that the gaming community as a whole is made up of, detriment. And they have found people within the industry, and a large number of them, especially in the biggest companies and the biggest echelons of these companies, that agree with them and are willing to push this agenda, to push this type of politics into their games, which is, of course, is having an adverse effect on quality. But again, this is not about the quality of the games, but I won't get into that as I already mentioned. This in turn has created a divide, not just between gamers and the social justice warriors, but also the game developers. Now, there already was a divide, increasingly so over the past 2 decades, especially as the industry got bigger and the companies got bigger and they basically became faceless corporate entities as opposed to community orientated businesses. You had an ear to the ground. These companies are run by people who probably aren't even gamers but are just money men. They are middlemen, only there to drive profits. We also have the games media, which are also adding to this problem, who, to be fair, have always been mouthpieces for the industry, but have since also become mouthpieces for social justice propaganda, with many not even gamers. They just write opinion pieces on politics and why this thing is racist, sexist, homophobic, take your pick. And thus, this brings us to Blizzard. If you look at their fan base, you can imagine that they would be the last company to even consider going down this route, and yet they have. They have increasingly been pushing this bullshit onto their fans. They've been increasingly pandering towards a fringe group of gamers, let alone a fringe group of their own audience, who, as we know, are, well, I guess you could argue that it's a stereotype. They are the white males, although it's a worldwide company and World of Warcraft has worldwide appeal. In fact, games like StarCraft have an overwhelmingly Korean fan base, or at the very least their most famous fan base happen to be Koreans. South Koreans, to be exact. And nonetheless, they have been pushing this, and the game in particular that has perhaps suffered from this the most is Overwatch. But just looking at Overwatch is enough for people to think, yeah, well, of course, the game is literally designed to be a vessel for this bullshit. So let's take a few examples, shall we, as to why Blizzard is slowly destroying themselves and why they're increasingly becoming not worth the money for people who are interested in buying their games. You know, I wasn't initially interested just because of the artwork, but now that I see them pushing this bullshit, well, now I really don't want to buy their games. The first of which we'll cover is the removal of Tracer's sexualized pose from Overwatch because of social justice backlash. The company claimed it was player feedback, but as we know, it was nothing more than the moral busybodies who got offended over a simple pose. The creators of Overwatch are facing a new controversy, this time over a butt. Blizzard said today it will remove a victory pose from its upcoming shooter Overwatch after receiving feedback from a player who criticised the pose as overly sexualised, unbefitting the character's personality. Overwatch game director Jeff Kaplan confirmed the removal on the game's forums, saying the developer will continue to try to do better. The removal of the pose in question, which applies to the character Tracer, the closest thing Overwatch has to a mascot, stemmed from a post on the game's beta feedback forums. A post with the name of Phipps posted a lengthy critique of Tracer's pose, commending Blizzard for creating a diverse and interesting and compelling cast of female heroes, but noting that one Tracer pose in particular seems ill-suited for the character. From Maid to Zarya to Widowmaker, the female cast reflects a large spectrum of personalities and player fantasies. Phipps wrote. Interesting that a player fantasy is okay when it's social justice approved. With that being said, let's talk about Tracer. From a marketing standpoint, she's the star of the show. She's a great hero. When we look at the way she's portrayed in promotional media, lore and art in game, we know a few things about her. She's fast, she's silly, she's kind, she's a good friend. Her body seems to be comprised of about 95% spunk. Now, for those of you who aren't British, you may be thinking, why am I sniggering at that? Well, it's simple. Spunk in British slang means sperm, but I guess in American terms, she's strength or muscle or grit. I don't know exactly what spunk is in American slang. I'm going to say it's guts. That's what she means, or he means. Phipps notes that the majority of the artwork and videos of Tracer support those character traits, but her over-the-shoulder victory pose seems out of place. Yeah, a simple over-the-shoulder pose is apparently not befitting of this character that this person seems to be invested in and seems to know an awful lot about, considering the game had literally just come out. What about this pose has anything to do with the character you're building in Tracer, Phipps said. It's not fun, it's not silly, it has nothing to do with being a fast elite killer, it just reduces Tracer to another bland female sex symbol. But all the female characters have been designed to appeal to a certain demographic and a certain type of person, and they're designed to be a certain type of person. They're either very, very sexy, or your waifu, or your nerdy waifu. In fact, if you look at it, it seems like it does fit her character. But regardless, the pose was removed, but it was replaced with this, a pin-up girl pose. Now, I just cannot tell if Blizzard did this by accident, or they did this on purpose to annoy this particular fan. Personally, I don't think they did. I think they just thought, well, this is cute, and this obviously suits the personality of Tracer as this foppish English cockney who is lovable and is a waifu. I mean, Phip didn't seem to complain, but it's a pin-up girl pose. Look at this, you see? It's the exact same pose. But really, the problem was down to the butt. Apparently, you can't show too much butt. You can't show too much ass. Otherwise, it's just horrible and disgusting, and it's objectifying. Even though she's literally wearing a tight leather or some kind of tight material on her legs and her lower body. So of course things are going to be more defined. But regardless, we must move on, because the real point here is to show how much Blizzard were willing to kowtow to the demands of their fringe group that they think will somehow make them loads of money, which, well, we'll soon see that that isn't. Barely a day after that article that I showed was posted, Blizzard decided that they had to start censoring Overwatch porn from the internet, because apparently people's fan art needs to be deleted because reasons. The only thing that some people are interested in regarding Overwatch is the porn. In fact, the only search keywords that any of our Overwatch content comes up in is in relation to Overwatch SFN models and Overwatch porn. No one who comes to this site is at all interested in a vanilla, repetitive multiplayer shooter. Well, Blizzard apparently doesn't want the only thing that Overwatch is good for to be the only thing that Overwatch is known for. So they're cop-blocking nerds by forcing the panties back on Tracer and Widowmaker with copyright infringement notices and DMCA takedowns. PC Games then picked up the story from some posts over on Reddit from user SpawnM when they explained that he makes NSFW videos using Valve's Source Filmmaker, which seems to be the only quality content made in SFM, and Blizzard has been dropping ban hammers on Overwatch porn. He wrote, "One of the biggest out there right now is by far is Overwatch. People can't get enough of it, except Blizzard, because today I got this. A few seconds earlier I got another one on another short movie that was uploaded there, and I'm by far not the only one. Whole sites are shutting down due to these DMCAs. SpawnM didn't make a post with empty words. He came bearing gifts," and he shows a screenshot of Pornhub showing that his video was removed by Blizzard because of copyright, even though this seems to be within fair use. The Pornhub video featured Tracer and Widowmaker from Overwatch involved in the futa sex with Liara from Mass Effect. Blizzard is also going after those on Tumblr and other blogs. NSFW content creator Aloasis posted the following on his blog stating, "As you might have noticed, due to the recent media coverage on Overwatch porn, a lot of creators have been hit with copyright strikes and got their stuff taken down, me being one of them. I just received my second final warning from Tumblr, forcing me to strip my blog from any posts in order to protect myself from being banned. No idea how things will go on from here." For some strange reason, PC Games N tried to paint the picture as if some kind of thievery was going on involving Overwatch SFN porn, writing, "The porn creators are ripping the assets straight out of a game, modelling genitals onto them and bashing them together really fast. So those aren't even artistic impressions, they're essentially stolen character models being used for something they shouldn't be. Stolen character models applies to every SFM, Gary's mod machinima, and any video game machinima on the web, although I wonder if they'll still consider that being used for something they shouldn't be. According to Fair Use Doctrine by Stanford University, a fair use is any copying of a copyrighted material done for a limited and transformative purpose, such as to comment upon, criticise or parody a copyrighted work. Such uses can be done without permission from the copyright owner. They even further delineate on the use of works under the depiction of parody, which attorney Rich Stim explaining, a parody is a work which ridicules another, usually well-known work, by imitating in a comic way. Judges understand that by its nature, parody demands some taking from the original work being parodied. Unlike other forms of fair use, a fairly extensive use of the original work is permitted in a parody in order to conjure up the original. And I think you get the idea from this article from One Angry Gamer. The problem with this is simple. One, it's the mindset. Not only are they abusing the DMCA and believe that their copyright is being affected by parody and fair use, because apparently taking these assets and putting them in different situations, transforming them in a way that they otherwise wouldn't be used in a Blizzard game, because Blizzard aren't going to make porn or softcore scenes, are they? We can definitely tell that due to their kowtowing and the fact that they were against the whole objectification thing, apart from when they, making models like Widowmaker. I mean, I'm not saying that they're not hypocrites here, guys. But this is probably where it also comes from. They're willing to destroy their own reputation, to destroy fan art, because this is what it is, it's fan art, and that is legal. These things serve more to help the game than to destroy it. These types of fan art only serve to introduce more people to the game, but apparently not to Blizzard, because it's just too lewd, it's porn, it's wrong, and they can't be doing that. Remember, this is the clean, family-friendly, politically correct Blizzard now, not the old Blizzard who catered to white male neckbeards. Oh no, we can't be having that now. Well, let's just continue along the lines of just appealing, or at least trying to appeal, to a demographic that barely plays games and just wants to control everything. I mean, by that logic, Red vs. Blue from Rooster Teeth is illegal, using assets from Microsoft and Bungie to create their show. It's just ridiculous. But apparently Blizzard is still a company worth your money. Definitely nothing wrong with them. And then in August of 2016, there was the most bizarre case of when you typed in GGEZ, which apparently was a thing that trolls said, even though that's a thing that everybody says in every game that has a multiplayer element. It's innocuous, but regardless, Blizzard took great issue with this. It would change and edit the text chat automatically in a kind of code. They've done this before as a joke, but this just seemed very different, almost as if they were insulting their own audience. And it would change it to a random response with lines such as, "Well played, I salute you all." Fairly innocuous. But again, perhaps not the intended message that you were trying to make. So already, they're trying to interfere with people. This is borderline censorious. For glory and honour, huzzah, comrades. Again, innocuous. But then we begin to get this. I'm wrestling with some insecurity issues in my life, but thank you all for playing with me. It's past my bedtime. Please don't tell my mommy. All of this written and coded by people who look like this. And they're attacking their own audience for that? Gee whiz, that was fun and good playing. I feel very small. Please hold me. Yeah, because people who type this obviously have confidence issues. They live with their mum in the basement and they feel very, very small, if you catch my drift. And then the censorship began to hit. There was a story of a person who was once known as Trump for Prez, who had his battle tag changed to BNet Player. And this is what he had to say. My battle tag was recently changed. It is now BNet Player. I do not know why, because it was in compliance with naming guidelines as stipulated there. My battle tag was Trump for Prez since way before the November 8th presidential election, and I got attached to it as Trump won. I think people get triggered and report me for offensive name. Is expressing support for a US president considered offensive? My wild guess is that there is someone at Blizzard dedicated to reviewing these reports of offensive names, and I would find it disturbing that they'd force me to change a battle tag which expresses support for our president. I'm going to change it for now to Praise Keck. Am I going to get forced to change that too? Thank you. Hey there, I'm Game Master so-and-so, and I understand that you were concerned regarding your battle tag being changed. Doing some looking over this, we determined that the battle tag wasn't appropriate for the game, and so the name was changed with no action to you, as courtesy so a new name could be selected. Thanks for taking the time to reach out to us. Take care and have a great day. This is what Blizzard are doing to their own community. They are now trying to change it from within. They are trying to force this politically correct mantra onto them, and it's proving to be unpopular. It's proving to be disastrous. Why? What is wrong with this? There's nothing inherently wrong with Trump for Prez. Like, regardless of their political opinions, they should not be forcing this onto anybody else. It doesn't harm anybody. And if you can't handle the fact that somebody has a battle tag by the name of Trump for Prez, then I think you need to get off the internet. I think Blizzard need to get off the internet and just make their games, because they can't handle this. And the thing is, as we'll soon see, they are pushing their own politics, and especially in regards to Trump and his policies, onto their fan base, into their games, and it's just bizarre. And of course, we can't forget Overwatch comic confirms popular character is a lesbian. Months after the character was released without any real mention of her sexuality in the game. Apparently in a comic, which is apparently is canon because this game is empty, the lore is not inside the game, it's outside the game, I don't know why, they decided that she's a lesbian. And apparently that the reveal is a big deal in terms of representation, especially considering Tracer's popularity and visibility, not just within the game, but also in its marketing. But it's also in keeping with Blizzard's entertainment statements that there are LGBT characters within the game, making Tracer only the first to be confirmed. You see, if she was already confirmed to be one as such when the game was released, I'd be okay with that, because like, yeah, this is a lesbian character, who cares? But the fact afterwards they announced this, it just feels like a JK Rowling thing, that they're just trying to cater to an audience that doesn't play their games. I mean, this girlfriend isn't even in the game, she's in a comic, and it just seems so half-assed. It's just so clearly pandering to a certain demographic, rather than, you know, she's just a video game character. Why can't they just have that in-game? Then again, it's a multiplayer shooter. There isn't any room for this. It just makes you wonder why they made it into that in the first place, but regardless, I'm not talking about that. But it's just weird how this has just been shoehorned in, and as far as I know, no other character has been announced as LGBT other than the closest thing they have to a mascot. Again, not only are they pushing this onto people, but they're also using it for marketing and to push sales. And then things began to turn Orwellian, with Blizzard banning an Overwatch player for only playing as one character, Torbjorn, who is, well, a white male character. I mean, the poor man, Fury 500, asked to be unbanned, saying, "Please unban me, I am a high elo one trick who does not do anything wrong, I am a wholesome boy, thanks." After investigating a number of cases, Blizzard said, that have been surfaced over the past 24 hours, we can confirm that the system is working as intended. None of these were simple cases of one tricking or off-meta hero selection. These are examples of behaviour intended to disrupt competitive play. As such, the punishments will stand. To be clear, specialising in certain heroes or playing off-meta heroes is not bad behaviour on its own. In fact, we actively encourage people to be clever with their team comps and work with their teammates to counter the enemy comp. Teamwork is important and should be considered when making your hero selections, especially in competitive play. So why all of this? Why are they punishing this man for playing one character? Well, the thing is, apparently there's a thing in Overwatch where people will play a certain character to maybe imbalance a team, and then this will cause problems for this team because they're doing it on purpose. But this guy didn't do anything wrong. This is just the character that he wants to play. And this is fine in every other game you can imagine. In Rising Storm, it wouldn't be an issue. People might go, oh, he just hogs that class. But again, if you're good at that class, you want that person on your team playing that class, like say a Grenadier for example. But even then, Rising Storm 2 has a limit to the amount of people that can play these roles. So if he gets in late game, when there's 63 people in server, he probably will only be able to play Rifleman, which is limitless. Anybody can play a Rifleman. Overwatch, apparently, you have to be banned rather than just changing the system. Maybe your role can be randomized, and so you have to be able to be good at all the characters, or decent at all the characters, or maybe, again, a limit to the amount of times you can play as this person, or the amount of people can play as a certain character in a team. But this guy did nothing wrong. He did something that he's probably always done in multiplayer games, but apparently, no, it's bad. Many people were actually against this, with one person, the Reinhardt, summing up the situation, saying, I watched Fuey's stream, nothing in that seemed toxic, outside of him playing Torbjorn. If Torbjorn is so bad that simply playing him immediately hurts your team, why is he playable? I was hoping you guys would rise above this and actually acknowledge something's not right. You set a precedent for trolls that they can now band together and say, switch or we report. And they have a point there, because now that the issue might not be people using the same character over and over again, or different characters over again to ruin gameplay. I don't know how that is the case, but regardless, whatever. People can now say, you've been doing that too long, change your character. Or they can just report to Blizzard randomly that this person has been playing as that character for ages and it's trolling. Even though they don't really have any evidence, but what can Blizzard do? They're like YouTube, essentially, when it comes to DMCAs. Well done, Blizzard. You're making it an incredibly toxic place for people to play in. Oh, speaking of that, apparently the community is toxic, and Blizzard's failure to curb this toxicity undermined Overwatch's inclusive message, said Jay Costello of PC Gamer. Just 2 months after Overwatch's massive launch, Blizzard acknowledged that the game had a toxicity problem. Since competitive has been live, we've been doing some under-the-hood tuning and tweaking on the report function to be more aggressive about handling toxic behaviour. Overwatch game director Jeff Kaplan said at the time, but toxicity is not just in competitive play. I think as the game ages a little bit, people's dark sides tend to come out a little bit more. 15 months later, the company attempts to address the situation have proved painfully slow and ultimately ineffectual. Blizzard's most recent acknowledgement is a developer update video entitled Play Nice, Play Fair, which celebrated the release of player reporting on consoles, a feature that should have been present from the start. Yes, on the console version of Overwatch, they did not have a report button, and they were wondering why there were so many trolls and apparent toxic people in their game. And apparently in 15 months, more than 480,000 PC players were hit with disciplinary actions. Now, how many of those were uncalled for remains to be seen, but I imagine that's probably the majority. And as PC Gamer says, kind of destroying their own argument, toxicity is a nebulous term, but to date it's a container for all the ways that other players can make a multiplayer game a miserable experience. It's hardly an issue unique to Overwatch, but for some reason it's so bad that it ruins the inclusiveness of this game. See, this is the problem. When you use social justice to market your game, this is the stuff that you're burning with, and they will use this to judge you. They will use this to attack you. If you are not seen to be inclusive enough, they will attack you for that. If you're seen to not be PC enough, for lack of a better term, they will ask you to remove things like the tracer pose. Or if you're deemed not to be good enough at dealing with harassment, which is a very difficult thing to deal with anyway, you will be deemed as toxic, or at least your fan base will be. But Blizzard agrees with that anyway. They think that their own fans are toxic. Just so you know, guys, you are toxic according to your own company. But returning to this article, people often say that anyone can be assaulted in online games, and that is true. But these insults often rest on oppressive foundations. Accusations of being LGBTQ+, female, autistic, or a person of colour, and so on, are meant to hurt, and therefore inherently imply that these groups are lesser. Cherry picking of things that people say, even though that everybody gets insulted in various different ways. And if you say something that could be used to attack you, that will be used. But regardless, it was articles like this which forced Blizzard's hand, rather than, try and think of a fairer way to go around sorting out harassment. Instead, we had this. At first, they admitted that fighting toxic behaviour is slowing down Overwatch's updates. Overwatch has serious issues with toxic players, and in recent months, those problems only seem to have gotten worse. Blizzard swears up and down that it's working to improve player behaviour, but according to game director Jeff Kaplan, those efforts are taking a direct toll on other aspects of the game development. We want to make new maps, we want to make new heroes, we want to make animated shots, but we've been put in this weird position where we're spending a tremendous amount of time and resources punishing people and trying to make people behave better. I wish we could take the time we put into having reporting on console and put that toward a match history system or a replay system instead. It was the exact same people that had to work on both. We got rerouted to work on the other. The bad behaviour is not just ruining the experience for one or another, but the bad behaviour is also making the game progress in terms of development at a much slower rate. Because of their ineptitude, which is what this really is, they're just making excuses for them unable to make a decent game, it seems, or a game with decent functions. Again, I'm not trying to pass judgment, it just seems that they've really been dropping the ball on this. They've been spending too much time curbing player behaviour and fighting toxicity. Well, I don't think it's just that. From the amount of articles, and this is just one example, as well as the PC Gamer one, they're trying to react to the media saying that they've got a toxicity issue when Overwatch perhaps has no more of a toxicity issue than any other game. But because it's Blizzard, because it's Overwatch, well, what can I say? You live by the sword, you die by the sword. They're going to use this social justice to judge them. This then degenerated quickly into even more censorship. This started at first with Blizzard hunting down toxic Overwatch players on YouTube. Yes, rather than just hunting down the people in game, they decided to go after people outside of the game on YouTube, with Kaplan, who has since decided to become Big Brother, saying, as you all know, we recently added the ability for our console players to report people, which has been amazing, and has shown us really good results. We also added warnings for people who are about to get suspended, silenced or banned, that their behaviour was unacceptable, and if they kept getting reported by other players or noticed by us here at Blizzard, that they would get in trouble, and that's helped a lot. We're very pleased with those results. On the other hand, player reporting, the amount of times that you guys actually report bad behaviour is now up 20%. We're restoring faith in the system. It's starting to work much better, and it's actually having a big impact on the community. We know those numbers aren't great as they could be. We know that the problem is not solved and things aren't perfect, but it's getting a lot better. And a lot of initiatives that we're doing here at Blizzard are starting to make a difference. We now proactively seek out social media sites like YouTube, for example, and look for incidents of very toxic behaviour and track down the accounts that are participating in those and action them. Oftentimes, before anybody's even reported them or they've shown up in any other place. That's just one example of us being proactive that I think is going to make a big difference over time. So this stalkerish behaviour where they seek out people doing things on the game, on YouTube and Facebook and Twitch before anybody reports them is apparently a good thing according to Blizzard. How is this good? This is the exact type of toxic behaviour that they're supposed to be against. They are actually stalking their own user base. They are literally saying, it doesn't matter if you're good in-game most of the time, but if you do one thing outside of this game, or if something is filmed and we don't like it, and what we deem to be toxic, because by the way, toxic is nebulous, and what they consider to be toxic is never clearly defined, and it's whatever they consider to be toxic on that day. say? I mean, just look at their code of conduct. Communication. When participating in communication of any kind, you're responsible for how you express yourself. Hate speech and discriminatory language is inappropriate, as in any obscene or disruptive language. So you could literally swear or say, hey, go away, and that could be considered toxic behaviour. Or threatening or harassing another player. Whatever that is. Again, it's so vague. Like, what is considered obscene? Fuck is obscene. Shit is obscene. Do they mean epithets? We do not know. And as we've already seen with the names, anything that goes against their politics, well, that's not allowed. It's just anything that's politically incorrect. And also behaviour. Griefing, throwing, feeding, whatever that is. Again, all of this is just up to the person's own interpretation. And this is how they like it. This is how they will deal with toxicity. And somehow this involves going outside of the game. And apparently it's working. Again, this is just wasting their time. They could just ignore all the things that happens outside of the game and just focus on developing. Instead, they're wasting more time. After they'd mentioned that they were wasting time on moderating, or they could just hire people to do it for them and allow these developers to do the things that they need to do, but they can't because they are forced to, not only by themselves, but by the people that they are associating themselves with. Oh, did I mention their politics? Yes, because apparently Blizzard and Harmonix opposed Trump's refugee ban last year. Because apparently the Blizzard CEO Mike Morhaime is apparently a political pundit and we should listen to his opinions. Let's not forget the fact that he's ignoring the issues on the other side, but hey, regardless, apparently this company is now going to take a stance on political issues rather than, maybe try and make their games decent, because according to themselves they're not making enough time to do that. But of course this bullshit could only cause problems for their new Overwatch League. Now what is Overwatch League? Well, Overwatch League is their attempt to create Overwatch into some kind of esport, and already their Orwellian rules are causing havoc over there. That's the most egregious examples being a Korean player by the name of Jun-Young Prophet Park, a player on London Spitfire, being punished for flipping the middle finger during a live stream. He didn't know that he was live apparently, but he was punished nonetheless. I mean, flipping off, putting the finger up, that's harmless. That's nothing. It does not have the power that it once had, but because PC Blizzard, you've got to curb that stuff. And of course there was Dallas Fields XQC, who was banned for things he said outside of the game, or at least outside of the league, where he was shit-talked by a player called Austin Wilmot, who was parodying him, and then he just shat-talked back, saying, shut your fucking mouth, go back there, suck a fat cock. I mean, you would like it. The player was gay, who he was attacking. Even though this was just a bit of banter back and forth between the two, and I doubt Austin Wilmot gave a shit, unless he was one of those people who can't take it, he was suspended. And then there was a case of Blizzard pushing back on Pepe the Frog. Yes, Pepe the Frog memes in Overwatch were banned, and people who posted them would be clamped down on. And this resulted in a person called Sinatra, not to be confused with Sinatra Says, a different person, who used a Pepe meme on his birthday and was told to take it down because it's a hate symbol. Yes, hate symbol. They believe in the SPLC's bullshit. And then there was the unfortunate case where a team called Fusion University were banned from using their jerseys, which were apparently too risque because they were emblazoning with FU on it, or Fusion University. Despite the fact that it has Fusion University underneath the FU, apparently it's too close to fuck you. And apparently it also taken action to ban a Korean player from using Climax, LMAO, Sucks, and Monkas, because these words are terrible and horrible, and we need to sanitize the internet and sanitize Overwatch and control how people think, feel and say, because it's toxic. And social justice warriors don't like that kind of thing. Women don't like that. It doesn't make them feel welcome and safe in this community, apparently. And as a result of things like this, although not all of them are linked to this one particular loss, the Overwatch League in its third week lost 13.5% more viewership due to their own actions and their attempts to police their league and their community and to push this politics onto their games and onto their fans. They are destroying their own endeavours, their own marketing appeal, their own games, their communities. They have basically become an echo chamber, or at the very least they're creating an echo chamber, and they're creating a place which basically saying, if you are saying anything that we don't like, you're unwelcome, which is basically almost anything at this point. When words like climax are banned, from Pepe the Frog to poses to people saying things outside of the game and the community, this company is going down the rabbit hole. It is going insane. How they think this is good business, I don't know, but they seem perfectly willing to continue despite the fact that this will destroy them, and it's destroying the Overwatch League, and people are coming out against this. Loyal fans, loyal players. These people do not deserve what is happening to them. Most of what they said is innocuous. It's something that should be ignored. And if it gets out of hand, then they should be punished. But if they're just trash talking each other, let them trash talk and they'll eventually end it unless they come to blows or something like that of the internet equivalent. Now, I don't know if I've convinced anybody with this video, but personally I think that if you are thinking about maybe buying Blizzard or continuing to buy into Blizzard, you should probably have second thoughts, because it's pretty clear that the vast majority of their audience would like to play their games. You would be their normal audience. They don't want you, and if they do want you, they want you to conform rather than be yourselves, rather than be free to say what you want to say within means. They'd rather force you to essentially become an SJW, to kowtow to their politics. They want to be these saviours almost. They want to be inclusive, and this is not going to help them. As I've already mentioned, they are losing viewership, they are losing money. But I think I've said everything that I need to say. This is one of the first times I've ever done a video like this. It may be rusty, a little bit rough around the edges, but honestly I enjoyed making this. So anyway, until next time, it's been your boy, and I'll see you later.